Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today I want to talk about what makes a good knife. I'm going to say there are 4 ingredients to a good knife, and these things are pretty simple. And perhaps some of you watching will be going, "Thanks, Captain Obvious." But all right, before you jump down in the comments section, let me remind you that as a reviewer, I see this all the time. Okay, the things that I'm going to talk about are things that I regularly see messed up, or regularly see people misunderstand. So while they may seem obvious to some of us, they're clearly not obvious to everybody. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First of all, um, let me start with the blade. All right, a blade on a knife needs to cut stuff. So give me a blade that cuts. All right, now there are a couple of sort of subcategories here. I think the primary one that I'm thinking about is geometry. Okay, so I've got a couple of examples. I should pull in one more. Where's the, here it is. Look at this. Got a dog, got a hold of this knife and shoot it up pretty good. Anyway, the knife itself is still more than functional. So I'll throw this one in as well, the Bushcraft Black from Mora. Okay, so the blade needs to cut well. And I've got in a couple of examples here. All of these knives, these knives, this knife, they're designed to be pretty heavy duty. They're designed to be designed to be kind of hard-ish use, or they're, in this case, I don't think this is a hard use knife, but look at the size, the thickness on that blade stock. Okay. So I bring these in to point out that you can make a heavy duty, hard use, capable, durable, reliable knife, all right, that still cuts well. All of these cut really, really well, despite the fact that they're meant to be on the tougher end of the spectrum. They do it in different ways. These two are pretty thin behind the edge. This one has a really nice secondary bevel. This one as well has a secondary. These two are zero grind. Those are all good options. The Inkosi, on the other hand, uses what's called a large hollow grind. Now, hollow grinds are my particular favorite approach to this, but it doesn't have to have that. It's just one way of getting a blade that's a little thicker and heavier duty to cut well. But the main thing is it needs to cut well. Now, the other thing is, there's a bunch of different materials represented here, and your materials, I'm not going to say that it has to be S90V or it has to be whatever 3V or 4V. Can 1075 or 1095 or ACR 13 MOV work well in a knife? Yes, as long as the material is suited to the purpose of the knife. Okay, that's what I want to say here. Um, the fact is I'm a bit of a steel snob like most of you watching, but I can, as a reviewer, I kind of have to put that on the side and say, okay, Kevin, I know this is not your favorite steel, but is it good enough for the purposes of this knife? And if it is, then I'm happy to give that knife a good review, even if it's not like my particular favorite steel. All right, so number one, again, this is really obvious. A knife is a cutting tool, and so it needs to cut. Number one. Number two, a comfortable handle. A comfortable handle. And there's a whole trend with knives that are meant to be very lightweight and not take up any space in your pocket and not take up any weight in your backpack. And great, okay. I see that, I can see how some people, if you're in a really extreme situation, may need that. 99% of the time, I'm going to favor a handle that's a little thicker, a little more hand filling, and a little more comfortable, because there's nothing worse. And I've had this happen many times. I'm sure many of you watching have had this happen. You go to do some job with your knife and you realize, this handle is just not well suited to what I'm doing. Probably it's my fault for picking the wrong knife for the wrong job. But if that's all you've got with you, don't really have a lot of options. But again, I think we've all been there where you've got to make a really hard cut, and you're dealing with a difficult material. I was cutting up some fire hose the other day, and fire hose does not cut easily. And so luckily, I had a good knife with a good lock and a good handle on it. I was able to force it through no problem. Happened to be, I don't have it with me here, but it happened to be my Benchmade Crooked River. Nonetheless, there's a job where you immediately learn the value of a comfortable handle. All right, because that's a difficult job. Often there's water and, anyway. So cutting fire hose, yeah, you're going to want a good, comfortable knife that that works ergonomically. All right. So number one, it's got to cut stuff. Number two, I got to be able to hold on to it while I'm cutting said stuff. Number three, all right, the lock needs to be solid and functional and usable. All right. And really my criteria are not difficult on this. Now I know some of these are fixed blades. All right. Obviously the lock is perfect, right? There's no way that this knife is failing on me or this knife is failing on me. It just can't do it. So the lock is a huge winner when it comes to a fixed blade, and that's what I recommend. If you're doing a cutting task that you're concerned about the lock, then a fixed blade is the right tool for that job. However, all of these knives, right, have locks that I can easily manipulate, that I can open the knife, close the knife without a problem. It opens when I want it to, how I want it to. It opens reasonably quickly. It closes when I want it to, how I want it to. It closes reasonably quickly. That's all I'm asking for, right? Notice I'm not getting into a huge discussion about action and bearings and on and on. I consider that secondary, unless it's a major, I don't know, if I bought a Koenig Arius and had terrible action, yeah, I would complain. That's the part of the one of the features, one of the selling points is the fineness of the machining and the tooling. Um, so some knives are they're pursuing like the smoothest action they can get, and that's fine. But to make a good functional cutting tool, the action doesn't have to be all that perfect. It just has to be reliable, right? It has to close when I want it to, and it has to open when I want it to. So, by the way, another point I should make here is about lock strength. Again, this is the strongest lock here, the constant lock. The rest of these, they all fold, and so someone said, and I'm sure this has been thrown around in the discussions of like folding knives and toughness and stuff, but um, someone said like all these knives are already broken, right? They're designed to fold, um, which is an inherent weakness. All right, so if you want a tough knife, get a fixed blade. And of course, in this conversation, I haven't pulled any out, but can a knife be a slip joint and still be a good knife? Yeah, I think so. Again, purpose is what matters. I'm not going to make a slip joint that's a tactical folder. All right, I'm not going to make a slip joint. Even bushcraft, I would be a little hesitant because maybe if you're putting pressure on the point there to drill a hole or something, that's a pretty sketchy thing to do with a knife that doesn't have a lock on it. So, um, can a slip joint be a good knife? Yes, but again, purpose matters. Finally, so all we've got here so far, I know I've talked a lot, and I'm a preacher, so I can talk a lot about one single idea. Remember, a blade that cuts stuff, comfortable handle, a lock that functions in the way that is practical and ergonomic, and finally, it has to carry comfortably. Okay, now this is where I should have brought a Swiss Army knife, but here's my point. I don't care whether you're using a sheath. All right, here's the example from the good old classic Mora. Right, I don't care if you're using a sheath that clips onto my belt. I don't care if you're using a pocket clip. All right, or if you've got an SAK where there's a Swiss Army knife where there's no pocket clip at all. It's just going to be carried in the pocket, or a gentleman's folder where it's just going to be carried in the pocket. Right, whatever option you go with, I don't care. They can all work, but it's got to be comfortable. Like you've got to think from a design standpoint, is this something that I want to have with me all day for hours? If I'm working hard, if I'm bending in awkward situations, and I have had knives where there was just no easy, comfortable place to put it, and we end up modifying the sheath in various ways. Now, and that's another solution to this, by the way. You can devise your sheath so that it's easily modified to fit various configurations, and in that way, right, that's how you made it comfortable. Here's a good example. This is a steel wheel roamer, but see all of the holes and openings on this, so I can rearrange the way this sheath attaches. I mean, the way this belt loop attaches in all kinds of different ways, so I can find and I can sort of set up the way that works for me, the way of carry that works for me. All right. Again, So guys, there you go. Four things that you have to worry about: a blade that cuts, a handle that's comfortable, a lock that works the way it's supposed to work, so that I can open and close the knife easily, and a knife that carries comfortably. If I'm going to have this on me, right? Even if I like, these are not EDC knives, all right? Even some of these I might call occasional carry knives. Doesn't matter. Even if I'm not going to carry it every day, if I'm carrying a knife, I'm going to be carrying it for a prolonged period of time. I don't normally, throw something on my belt that I only need for 15 minutes. Then I would just grab it and use it, and I wouldn't bother attaching it to myself. But any knife that's going to attach to my body, either on my belt or in a pocket, it needs to be comfortable. Okay. So those are the four things. And again, I know some of you are like, thanks, Captain Obvious. Like, we all knew this about all knives, and I'm sure you did. But despite how simple it seems, I regularly get people, I get knives that I'm reviewing or that I'm watching reviews of that completely missed one of these points. Okay. They've got a blade that's too thickly ground or out of too poor a material to perform the way it needs to perform. They've got a pocket clip that doesn't work, right? That doesn't clip onto the pocket well, and it's really difficult to get in and out, or it's too thick and uncomfortable to carry on a regular basis, or the sheath is only carries one way, and it's a really awkward, inconvenient way. So knives get this wrong. Companies get this wrong regularly, despite the fact that it seems really, really obvious. The other thing is people get this wrong. Okay, I get comments, and in all the forums and all the discussion places, you'll see this. Like, I here's my scenario. I don't know, I'm a dolphin trainer and I want to carry a knife. Is an SE3 the best knife for the job? Well, no, because it's carbon steel and you're going to be in water all day, right? Even the coated blade, the edge is going to rust on you. It's not the right knife for the job. Um, so, or maybe, uh, I don't know, fill in the blank with whatever you want to do. Maybe you say, I work in a concrete factory and there's concrete dust in the air all the time, and I'm going to buy this knife. This is the knife I want to buy, the Best Tech Fairchild, to carry to work with me. And I'm like, if you love the Best Tech Fairchild, it's not wrong to like something and want to buy it for that reason, right? Trying to justify your purchase by saying this is going to be a work knife is probably not the best, right? This would be the knife to carry to the concrete factory, or one like it. Even this or this would be a better option, but I'd be inclined to go with a fixed blade in a really dusty, dirty environment. Anyway, despite the fact that we even that these seem really, really obvious, even people mess this up. So those are my four ingredients for a good knife. If you think there's anything I've severely missed, I'd love to hear about it. But I think really I've tried to simplify it down as much as I could. And I started with a list, what makes a good knife, and I just sort of pared it down and pared it down and pared it down to, I don't think I could pare it down anymore. Let me know. I guess with a fixed blade, you could skip the lock. Okay. So then there'll only be three categories. It needs to cut stuff, have a comfortable handle, and carry comfortably. But if we're going to include folders in the list, then it needs to open and close in a reliable, repeatable, functioning way. All right, thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check those channel sponsors. That is a big, big help to the channel. We will talk to you soon.